Ever since the game-changing omnipotence twist in chapter 79, there have been a number of speculations on the next big plot twist of the story. The bar for the shocking twist has been set so high that reveals like Amado being the mastermind or Momoshiki waiting for the perfect moment may no longer pack the same punch. Meanwhile, the emergence of god-tier abilities has elevated the series to a whole new level, and this plot addition could even be the trigger to the next big revelation in the story. A plot twist as monumental as Attack on Titan, something that would make the omnipotence twist look like a child's play. Today we will dive into some possibilities which involve time travel as a core concept, so hope you hit that sub button before we begin, and let's get into it. Around the time when chapter 79 released, this panel from the Naruto manga went viral on the internet, with theories claiming that the figure in the background is Boruto who traveled back in time. If you had been tuning into my channel back then, you must have seen this post, where I pointed the dialogue in this panel being the same as Boruto's current scenario. While the possibility of this theory to come true is debatable, an idea emerged during that time which could seamlessly integrate into the series, setting up a major plot twist. It was time travel, something which even has its own anime exclusive arc as well, but not many people take this idea seriously due to a number of reasons. Like the introduction of time travel to fix what has been broken could lower the stakes in the story, something that has happened with the popular anime and manga series Tokyo Revengers. But there were even some series like Attack on Titan which incorporated this plot point very well without making the story lose its essence. So in order for Boruto to become a pinnacle of storytelling just like AOT, it must do something phenomenal in its own way, like by reimagining divine concepts that are rooted in its own lore and world building. And with the introduction of characters like Shibai and abilities like omnipotence, prescience and clairvoyance, I think a time-related plot twist is indeed plausible. So basically what I think is that Shibai Otsutsuki is Boruto from a future timeline who has come back to guide the present one. It may sound absurd at first, but let's cover all the hints and clues before drawing any conclusions. First of all, Shibai is different than all the other male Otsutsukis since he lacks the Shiki suffix in his name. At first it may seem like a nominal detail, but on some deep digging, I found something interesting. A fascinating detail dropped in chapter 35 seems to hint that Shibai could actually belong to a different race. When Jigen imagined Boruto and Kawaki as Otsutsukis, he envisioned them wearing long black robes. A similar outfit was worn by Shibai, and compounding this detail with the lack of Shiki suffix, we can assume that he wasn't born an Otsutsuki but evolved from another species. The imagination of Jigen indicates that the Otsutsukis expect the impure ones to wear black outfits, and their usual noble attire, which is white, is only worn by the ones who are Otsutsuki by birth. So this provides us the first puzzle piece for Shibai's true identity. He could belong to a non-Otsutsuki race in the past, but with the passage of time, he turned into an Otsutsuki and then became a god. Well, doesn't that remind you of Boruto's life? First he was born as a human child, then he became the vessel of an ambitious monster, till a day came when he himself turned into an Otsutsuki. And looking at how the god plot turned out in the other manga of Kishimoto, I won't be surprised if Boruto unlocks divine powers directly from Shibai at some point. He definitely has the same eye and could be on his way to become the strongest of the universe. But won't that be a boring, repetitive twist which happens in every other story nowadays? The main character is born, lives happily, then something happens which disrupts their peaceful life, which forces them to leave their home and face some challenges. Along the way they meet the god of the verse, who grants them special powers to help in their quest. This brings us to the plot twist, which takes some brain power to understand, but it definitely has the potential to surpass omnipotence. And by the way, some people still don't understand the complexities of this power as well, believing it to be a mere memory switcheroo. Well, in reality it's more than that. It literally brings a wish to life, meaning that everyone affected would have their feelings and perceptions switched. The time loop theory is also a bit complex to understand, but I will try to break it down as efficiently as I can. Basically, this theory advocates the concept of multiple timelines. There is one timeline which is the present one that we are witnessing in the story. Then there is another timeline whose events were successfully actually avoided in the present one, all thanks to Kashin Koji's prescience. It's kinda similar to Dragon Ball Z, where future Trunks cannot prevent the worst in his own timeline. He's able to alert the Z fighters about the androids, which is how he saves their timeline from facing the same fate. The Dragon Ball symbolism on Two Blue Vortex is already huge, and now with this theory, a lot of dots will connect, orchestrating the biggest plot twist of the story. So as I talked about the alien origins of Shibai, teasing the possibility for him to evolve from a non-Otsutsuki being, there's a good amount of chance that he was actually a human being at some point, and not just any human, but Boruto himself. You may have noticed the horn on Boruto's head resembling Shibai, and even the Jogan is rumored to have the same origin. It could be much more than a coincidence, and here is how I believe the things have played out. Boruto from a future timeline could have abandoned his planet after the divine tree cultivation in an attempt to redeem all the destruction caused by external forces. He could have devoured countless planets for centuries, eventually becoming an Otsutsuki god. This timeline could have been really different than the one that we are witnessing currently. Surprisingly, Boruto with long hair and horn looks exactly the same as Shibai too, so assuming he did become the most powerful Otsutsuki of all time, there were limitations to his Shinjutsu as the Otsutsukis were immune from his divine spell. Shibai, or let's say Boruto, would have realized that the destruction cycle of the Otsutsukis needs to be stopped. But instead of doing it himself in the present timeline, he decided to travel back in time in order to orchestrate a future where everything would go according to his plan. First, he abandoned his mortal remains that were found by Amado around the same time as the birth of his present counterpart. This would explain how Akebi's death and Boruto's birth are connected. As Momoshiki mentioned the Otsutsuki gods rewriting humanity's history before, it could be that Amado was under Shibai's omnipotence all along, which explains how he found his remains and used them in creating powerful cyborgs. All of it could be a part of Shibai's humongous plan, which is to make the present Boruto capable of doing what he couldn't. Now this explains everything from why the omnipotence happened, the true reason behind Koji's involvement in Boruto's life, and why he's getting to learn all the powerful abilities in advance. Shibai wants his past counterpart to keep living and become strong enough to fulfill his ultimate mission. This is why he's keeping him alive from above, as said by Jura in chapter 13. The plot twist of the protagonist and the god of the verse being the same entity would definitely elevate the story to becoming one of the best works of all time. A twist like the one I mentioned is pretty plausible in Boruto, based on the introduction of divine plots and possibilities like omnipotence, prescience, and omniscience. It's more of a branch reality type of possibility rather than a time loop, as the original timeline of Shibai or future Boruto won't get fixed by the actions done in the present timeline. The time loop also makes sense if Boruto ends up losing everything, pushing him to devour countless planets and ascend as the Otsutsuki god Shibai. He would then abandon the current timeline and attempt to rewrite destiny in another, taking himself into an infinite loop of trial and error. The concept behind this theory explains why Boruto has the Jogan at first place. It could be like a divine marker, a link bestowed by Shibai himself to guide his past counterpart in dispelling the darkness, something that was teased by Toneri in episode 8 as well. Jogan's foreshadowing in the anime, which involved the plot of Toneri and Urashiki, could also be a teaser for the time travel theory. First off, Urashiki saw this eye and immediately called it troublesome. It could be because he identifies the Jogan as a divine signature, which can only be given by an Otsutsuki god. Further, when he had a conversation with Toneri before sealing him off, he said something in the lines of, "You seem to have made the first move by doing something to that woman's child." He's referring to Boruto here, and something was done by Toneri which could have put an impact on his fate. So what if the Moon Otsutsuki had a weaker version of prescience? Maybe Toneri had recognized the divine marker of Shibai, which is why he thought it would be better to make Boruto aware of the forthcoming. Not just that, Urashiki punished Toneri for making the first move, which means the main Otsutsuki family that was mentioned in this conversation was totally not okay with Boruto awakening that eye, and there could only be a single reason for that. The Otsutsuki clan knows that a boy with the Jogan would bring an end to their cycle of destruction. They must have known it through the prescience of some elder Otsutsuki, and while they would have seen it as a mere possibility, it made sense for them to seal Toneri, as he was the key figure behind orchestrating a future where Boruto would awaken to his divine role. He was no less than a singularity, the anchor of fate who has the power to turn certain possibilities into reality. There is a similarity in Kashinkoji and Toneri's plot, which I believe is also a kind of foreshadowing for how Boruto will fix the timeline. Both the characters have helped the prodigy in awakening certain powers that he was actually supposed to unlock years in the future. The purpose of Koji was to prevent the worst possible future, while Toneri made an attempt to make Boruto aware about his role as the dispeller of darkness. Both of them possess the power of peeking into the future, and they could have been specifically chosen by Shibai to guide Boruto, while the case of Kashinkoji perfectly fulfills the criteria of being a divine anchor of the Otsutsuki god, considering his Shinjutsu originating from the remains of the same entity. Case of Toneri is kinda different, not just because he's an Otsutsuki who are immune to this divine spell, but also for the following possibility. He might have personally intervened in Boruto's destiny to offer a clue for his divine journey, the reason being his ability to sense the pure power, which was bestowed upon the prodigy by the god Otsutsuki. Also, the Otsutsuki clan could be uncertain about the future trajectory of events. Maybe that's why they are not taking Boruto that seriously at the moment, since his Jogan has been missing for a while, but when the day of its awakening shall come, it will mark the beginning of the Celestial clan's downfall, fulfilling the divine attempt of Shibai Otsutsuki. You can check out these videos for more theories on how Boruto and the deity are connected. Don't forget to drop your opinions in the comments below, and I will see you next time.